Greetings, everybody. Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to the first Richard's Rock Rambles for 2026. Hope you guys have all had a safe and a good new year. Hope it's going to be a good one for you, and it's been treating you well thus far. What are we? A couple of weeks into the year, and you've all recovered from your various overindulgences. It usually happens this time of the year. And so I've been wondering, what to do for the first show. And I was chatting to Michael Erfurt, the other half of Richard's Rock Rambles, the guy behind the scenes, a very good friend of mine. And he suggested, why don't you do your top 10 songs? And I took it on board and I thought about it. And, for me, that's almost an impossibility. Top 10 songs. I mean, there's so many songs that I really enjoy. And to just narrow it down to 10, sort of ranking 1 to 10, I can't. It's an impossibility for me. So what I thought I'd rather do is just chat about 10 of my favorite songs, in no particular order. And I'm going to do 5 in this show, 5 in the next. Might do some more after that as well. Just if you hear a bit craziness going around, it's just the dog and the cat, burning off some excess energy. Dog chases the cat thinking it wants to play. Cat doesn't want to play, and usually there's somebody gets a smack in the face. Anyway, that's just an aside. My crazy life. Right, so let's get into it. So, like I mentioned, this is in no particular order. Just 10 of my favorite songs. So these are the first 5. And we're going to kick off with a band that, if you're a regular to my show or to the channel, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of this band. Led Zeppelin, a track from the album Presence. This is the remastered one which came out a couple of years back. Comes with a bonus disc. Here we go, Led Zeppelin in all their glory. And for many, this is an outlier in the catalogue of Led Zeppelin. Most people, when you talk about your favorite Led Zeppelin, they either go for the first one or for the 4th album or maybe the 2nd. Very few go for Presence, but there's always been something about this album that stood out for me. This is definitely a Jimmy Page album. This is where he's all over the place here. His guitar work is exemplary. But the track I want to talk about it's called Nobody's Fault But Mine, and I'm pretty sure it's a cover. It's an old album, track that they just redid. And for one reason only, and that's the drumming of John Bonham. If you want to hear Bonham in his powerful best, just listen to that track. On all the tracks on this album, he really cooks. But on Nobody's Fault But Mine, stellar. And it's also a song that showcases Robert Plant's vocals. When they were doing this album, he'd just come off a bad accident. He had a car accident, I think, and his leg was in plaster or whatever, and he wasn't in the best space of all, but there was a lot of anger in his vocals as well, and it definitely came through on that track. Nobody's Fault But Mine. And it's one of those tracks where I suppose you could say it's sort of stop-start. Lots of nice time changes from John Bonham and John Paul Jones, obviously, on bass. Very little keyboard work on this album. It's definitely a guitar bass and some nice riffage from Jimmy Page. But it's a track that when I play that track, I always have to crank the volume up a bit. Stunning stuff. So that's the first one from Led Zeppelin's Presence with that famous cover, and Nobody's Fault But Mine. Let me just check and see if there's anything else I can say about that particular track. It's quite a lengthy track, 6 minutes and 27 seconds. Might not be a cover. Here we go. Second one, the band Whitesnake. Love this band. I've always loved this band. Recently called time on their career. David Coverdale said, that's it, I've done enough. And his vocals aren't that great anymore. And the man's getting on in years, so I think he's done the right thing. But in any case, we're talking about the album Slide It In. And I'm a big lover of the early Whitesnake, the more blues-based stuff. And this album was kind of a bridge between what would come later with 1997 and a few of the ones afterwards. Slide It In. And the track that really does it for me on here, one of my favorite tracks on here, is Standing in the Shadow. Standing in the Shadow of Love, if you want to call it that. And again, the main reason for my love of that track, Cozy Powell on drums. Like John Bonham there for Led Zeppelin, Cozy Powell is all over that track on here. Such a powerful drummer, very similar to John Bonham in that kind of style. Of course, you got David Coverdale. His voice is immaculate on this album. Towards, the last few albums before we called Time on It, his voice just couldn't cut it anymore. But here, and you could see they were going to go into a heavier direction. Of course, the hair and everything else in the States. And 87 would be the album that really did it for them. But this one for me is even better, because you get a little bit of the old blues-based stuff also with the new. This one's got some bonus tracks, and there's also a DVD video on here. And there's a US remix as well. So they get the UK mix and the US mix. And I think the US mix on here has got John Sykes on guitar, because of course he also joined the band. So you get the two very different sounds. I just prefer the original UK mix. That Mel Galley on guitar, and Mickey Moody, and John Lord, Cozy Powell, and David Coverdale, of course, the driving force. But yeah, Standing in the Shadow. And some great lyrics as well. David Coverdale never hid under a bushel what he was singing about. Pretty much about woman and sex and love and whatever. He never did any sort of space oddity stuff, or didn't do any sort of progressive rock, if you like. This is straight down the line, blues-based hard rock, and you don't get better than this album, Slide It In by Whitesnake. Yeah, this is a really cool collection. There we go, there he is. Back in the day. Next one, Jethro Tull. And this is an album which was part of a trilogy, if you like, which started off with Songs from the Wood, went into Heavy Horses, and then this one came out called Stormwatch. A very dark, very broody album. It just holds a special place in my heart. It's something about it. It's very atmospheric. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, when I was on holiday in Amanus, I had a pair of, I had what do you call those, Walkmans, with a cassette of this album. Remember the Walkmans? Showing my age here. And that was one of the few tapes that I had over that weekend, and I just fell in love with the album. And one track in particular, which is a very progressive rock sounding track. Jethro Tull did have the prog moments, but none more so on this track, called Dark Ages. Martin Barre on guitar is just stunning on this album. Fantastic. Ian Anderson's vocals before they went south, very powerful. There we go, that's the album cover with Ian Anderson with his binoculars. And yeah, so his vocals are great. John Glasscock was actually on here, but Ian Anderson played a lot of the bass because John Glasscock was quite ill, so I don't think he played bass on all of the tracks. Barrymore Barlow on drums, and if I'm not mistaken, John Evan on keyboards, David Palmer, now D. Palmer, on keyboards as well. So it's Ian Anderson, Martin Barre, Barrymore Barlow, John Evan, and David Palmer. Great lineup, and that was the same lineup for Heavy Horses as well as Songs from the Wood. The Dark Ages has got these different parts to it. Epic kind of track. Excellent guitar work. Very moody beginning. This is not a happy album. This is not something you play at parties. But if you want to stick your headphones on and get to know the Jethro Tull, the prog side of the band, stick that track on. I love it. It just does something to me, that track. Of course, great writing, great lyrics as well from Ian Anderson. Very thought-provoking as well, this album. Stormwatch and the track Dark Ages. Stunning stuff. Second last track I want to chat about. Band from Holland, from the Netherlands. Of course, Golden Earring. And they were better known for another track on this album, their biggest hit ever, of course, Radar Love. Talking about the album Moontan. The cover that was banned here in South Africa. But I think it was more for the inside cover than for the outside. But be that as it may, I mean, what wasn't banned here back in the day? 1973, this album came out. And my favorite track is the longest track on here, 9 minutes and 31 seconds. Also very progressive. A lot of the early 70s output, Golden Earring, had that sort of proggy vibe, along with hard rock. And the track I'm talking about is Are You Receiving Me? Also, there's a great sax solo in that track as well. And George Kooijmans on guitar, such an underrated guitarist. Excuse me. So I have another sip of coffee here. You are such an underrated guitarist. Barry Hay on vocals, of course, and Caesar Zuiderwijk on drums, and Rinus Gerritsen on bass. That makes up the band. Those are the four guys who were pretty much in Golden Earring right up until the end, and until George Kooijmans couldn't play anymore. I think he passed away last year or the year before. But just give Are You Receiving Me a listen. If you're into progressive rock of the early 70s, stunning stuff. Also different parts to it. And yeah, like I mentioned, there's a great sax solo which kind of mingles in with the guitar. So you've got the two things going off at the same time, and it really works. So there we go. That's my fourth one. Golden Earrings, Moontan, and Are You Receiving Me? I think this is a remaster, but they haven't. I don't think they've done the deluxe treatment with any of these early 70s Uriah Heep, Golden Earring albums. I might be wrong, but this is definitely one that you have to have in your collection. The rest of the tracks are also good. And then finally, as you all know, Black Sabbath is my favorite band of all time. And this is my favorite Black Sabbath of the Ozzy Osbourne era, maybe even of the entire catalogue. Always has been, always will be. Volume 4. And my favorite track on here, can you guess what that is? I mean, there are so many great tracks, and there's not a bum track on here. Although having said that, the track before this, or the full track before this, because there's a little bit of studio trickery before the track I'm going to chat about, but Changes, you know, that really maudlin song that Ozzy sings about lost love and whatever. For me, as well as that track's done, it's the weakest track on the album. The rest of the stuff is just in your face, full on riffage, prime Black Sabbath era of the 70s. And the track I'm talking about, of course, is Supernaut, which follows from FX, which, as I mentioned, is just sort of they're just mucking around in the studio. I think Tony Iommi he was naked for some reason, and he had his cross down, and he was knocking his cross on the bass strings of Geezer Butler's, but I don't know what they were doing. There was a lot of coke in these days, and I'm not talking about Coca-Cola. And yeah, maybe they weren't quite with it. But Supernaut, stunning track. Probably for me, one of the top 3 riffs that Tony Iommi throughout his esteemed career has written. Alongside some excellent lyrics from Geezer Butler, who was the main lyric writer, songwriter for Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi, of course, did most of the music. And let's not forget Ozzy's vocals on here. Ozzy's vocals on this track, as well as the whole album, and Black Sabbath, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage, were never bettered. He had a great range. And Supernaut starts off with that Bill Ward, I think it's the hi-hat, and you just see him go, and then Tony Iommi comes in with that riff. It just smacks you in the face. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And that's kind of like the blueprint for metal, for doom, for stoner, some of the tracks on here, as well as their previous albums. But this one, I think they just took it up a notch. They tried a few different things as well on this album, but Supernaut for me is just the standout track. And when he launches into that riff, along with Geezer Butler, because, you know, they were never two guitarists, but Geezer Butler played like a rhythm guitarist. And the two of them, so powerful. And halfway through the track, Bill Ward comes back in for another few drum fills and what have you, back into the riff, kicks you in the balls and takes you away. Stunning stuff. I mean, Snowblinds on here, Cornucopia, Laguna Sunrise, St. Vitus Dance, Under the Sun. Is there a better track to finish off a Sabbath album? I don't think so. But yeah, for me it's Supernaut from Volume 4 by Black Sabbath. So there we go, folks. Those are my first 5 favorite tracks. As I said, I've decided not to do a top 10 because, you know, it might change from day to day. There's so many great tracks that I like. So I thought I'd just do some of my favorites. So for the next one, I'll do the next 5. And then, like I said, maybe after that, I'll carry on and do another 5 and another 5 until you're totally sick of me. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Have yourselves a great new year. And I'm sure 2026 will only have good things in for you. And just remember to listen to some good rock and roll. Always puts a smile on my face. Please, if you're new to the channel, down below, give me a thumbs up for the video. Any comments, more than welcome. Great to hear from you as always. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. That'll be fantastic. Have yourselves a great week. And I'll catch you soon for part 2 of my favorite songs. Take it easy. Bye-bye.